Just 3 months after announcing an investigation into a state Medicaid contractor, the Texas Attorney General closed the case and cleared Superior HealthPlan of allegations it spied on Texans. During an explosive hearing at the Texas Capitol in March, lawmakers accused the company of hiring a private investigator to dig up information on their colleagues and even on families the company insures. However, this week, the Office of Attorney General released a statement saying Superior's activities involving researching and consolidating publicly available documents into internal reports, which does not violate Texas law. The statement added there was no evidence of any surveillance or violation of privacy discovered or indicated within the investigation, nor was any privately held or confidential information such as protected health information included in the reports. Avery Travis has been following this story and is joining us now for some context. Thanks for being with us.
Of course. Thanks, Josh.
So for everyone who hasn't been following this or to catch up, what's been the reaction this week to the Attorney General's findings?
You know, there really hasn't been much since that happened earlier this week, which is maybe a bit surprising because at the time, lawmakers were openly frustrated. That we heard a lot from them about how they were disappointed, even at times in that hearing that you mentioned, angry, admonishing the former CEO of the company and speculating about whether taxpayer dollars had been used for some of this research. Lawmakers really wanted to know how far this went. But this week, we have heard from Superior. It released a statement saying it was, quote, pleased the numerous false accusations resulting from the March 26 DOJ committee hearing have been rebutted by the Attorney General's review. The statement went on to say Superior remains committed to transparency and accountability. They said we will continue to ensure that all partners and practices reflect the integrity we expect of ourselves. Now, in that hearing we mentioned, they did admit to hiring a firm for background research. They repeatedly insisted it was only ever looking for publicly available information for what they called the normal course of business. They gave a few examples. They said preparing for meetings, identifying conflicts of interest, or even identifying fraud, waste, and abuse in their insurance work. However, they did note that the research in question included irrelevant and unnecessary personal information. In a statement right after that hearing, they apologized and they said, quote, that was inappropriate and never should have happened. They went on to say this occurred prior to 2019 and does not reflect the values and standards of our current leadership. They also fired the CEO, who was included in some of those email exchanges with that firm.
And you've seen some of these emails in question, right?
That's right. We confirmed they're the same emails that some of the lawmakers were referencing in that DOJ committee hearing and that they had reviewed. They appeared to show that CEO asking for in-depth reports on people. In fact, we reported one email referenced a lawmaker's divorce records. Another mentioned an adoptive mother's social security number and some other information, including photos of her home and her address. But as the Attorney General said, they do believe all of that was obtained through publicly available sources. They say that their investigation, which was expedited, but it showed that they did not break any of Texas privacy laws.
So lawmakers and advocates noted their biggest concern was whether Texans who receive health care from this contractor are receiving the best care. The investigation did not go into those issues, but there has been, has there actually been any progress when it comes to addressing those concerns?
It's a good question, Josh, and it's something I know you all have talked about on this show. What might get lost in this conversation is that Superior is one of just several insurance companies who provide health care through several different programs to really the most vulnerable Texans, the most in need, disabled children. Some programs serve foster children. And so advocates and families and even lawmakers in that DOJ committee hearing in March really hammered home the point that the reason they were so focused on what this background research was is they want to make sure these companies are providing the best health care for families and children. And so we heard a lot of really emotional testimony during that hearing from lawmakers saying that's the charge we have tasked not just Superior HealthPlan, but all of these companies with as state contractors, and they want the focus to be on that. We do want to note a law was filed this session, or excuse me, a bill was filed this session, and it has now been sent to the governor to be considered to become law just this week. The bill was authored by Jeff Leach, and what it would do is it would could make really illegal surveillance by state contractors. They say they want to make sure that private information does not come up in the course of the work of state contractors. And so it's yet to be seen what that law will really do, but we will note that lawmaker, Jeff Leach, mentioned this issue with Superior Health Plan in the conversations surrounding that bill that's now been sent to the governor. So something for us to watch.
All right, Avery, thank you for all the insight. A new Texas law aims to make sure the people who work in schools are not a threat to children. We look at how efforts to close loopholes in the state's do not hire registries are advancing this session. A bill aimed at improving law enforcement's response to mass shootings is closer to becoming law. We look at the new rules that could save lives. Plus, the push to cut your property taxes, what lawmakers are doing now and why your input could change the size of your tax bill.